Hey Siri,
Hey, it's me.
what's my name?
Your name is Big Kitch.
Thank you, Siri, you're the best.
I didn't understand that.
I said you're awesome.
I didn't understand that.
You're great, Siri, thank you.
I didn't understand that.
Okay, you're making me look bad, it's over.
Here's what I found on the internet.
Nevertheless, what's going on? It's William Kitchen, peer navigator for the Offender Success Program, Region 4 out of Kent County. I'm also a facilitator for Muskegon County Courts. I facilitate the MRT program, Moral Recognition Therapy, and do a host of other volunteer services and sit on various boards and committees surrounding the field of reentry and rehabilitation. I used to always hear a saying about home is where the heart is, and my heart is definitely in Muskegon Heights. All of my fondest memories with family, all of my initial imaginations occurred in Muskegon Heights of what the world looked like and what it could be. For me, was started there in Muskegon Heights. So, on one hand, I was a mama's boy, church, school, had a pretty decent social network of friends. But then there was also like a street element that I was starting or beginning to engage in. Again, it had a lot of different social networks that were provided to me in that lane as well. So I always like to think that I was somewhat living a double life because nobody never knew. Like, my mom never knew I had started stealing cars when I ran away, right? But people in the streets didn't know I come from a middle class home either, right? So it just kind of like I was living two selves in two different worlds, trying to please two different social hierarchies. I think that's one of my fondest memories, just being amongst family and having a good time. Sunday dinner, right? But anytime we would have a family gathering, we would have these little dance competitions. Of course I won. I mean, right?
I would like to invite any evidence.
I have evidence.
Anyone.
There's witnesses that it still exists. I won every dance competition in our family. And even some of my relatives currently today like to make excuses on why I won, but it's probably one of my fondest because I won't say that I'm deprived of it, but the way that family operates now, all these years later, it's a little bit different. So coming back after I've done the time that I did, the amount of time I did, it was a different reception when I came home, simply because I was sentenced to 11 years in prison. But ultimately, I turned that 11-year sentence into a 21-year sentence. So from the ages of 14 to 35, I was incarcerated inside the Michigan Department of Corrections. A lot of people had forgot that I had existed. My 11 years had came and gone. I'm 2 decades in now. So a lot of people that was hopeful that I would come home in 11 years kind of stopped caring. A lot of family, we have a saying like out of sight, out of mind. So to come home, the reception for me was a little different because I was a child when I left. And now I'm coming back into the arms of my family and friends as an adult, someone that they essentially don't know. From 14 to 35 years old, everything about me had changed. The way I look, the way I walk, the way I talk, especially the way I think. And so really for them, I believe if I was to put my feet into their shoes, they really had to figure out how to embrace and receive a stranger back into their life. I think our social DNA still yearns for acceptance, especially amongst your family. And for me to feel all my life like I was like the black sheep or I was never good enough at something, the unknown is probably the biggest thing for me because, like, yo, do they like me? 35 years old at this point. Like, do they want me around? I guess they gonna call, send a text. just not knowing if they truly care about you, because you want them to care because they're your family. But just like you were a stranger to them, they're a stranger to you. So you're trying to figure out that fine line of, I mean, you my family, but are we compatible? Like, I didn't get a chance to grow up with you. I didn't get a chance to be raised with you. And so you see different bonds within your family between like cousins or aunts and nieces and uncles and nephews. And then you start thinking like, wow, I don't have that because I missed out on that upbringing. But you think they'd be open to like possibly letting me in, like embracing me like that? And just not knowing, you just never really know. I spent years and years fighting for what I thought was respect. And so I was like, I gotta have it now. Like, I done already pretty much gave up my whole life to maintain a level of value and respect that I have. And I feel like no one can infringe upon the boundaries that I set. And so over time, I think that our relationships throughout my family have become more solid, because I just stayed at it. I feared the unknown, but I stayed at it. And eventually they got a chance to see me, the value that I bring to the table. I think they embrace who I am now. But I think like with anything else, it took time. I used to have arguments with all my family members all the time. They used to tell me I was institutionalized. You know, that's that prison thought. You think like you're still in prison. I had a different perspective of life. When I came home, I didn't really have a concrete plan on what I wanted to do. I spent 21 years trying to figure out what I'm gonna go home and do. You know, all of the thoughts of crime that I might go back and do, right? All of the big CEO dreams that I had. No one ever told me that there's mechanics in between that you have to work towards to get to those points. But when I came home, after having done all that time, I came back into Muskegon Heights, and man, it was just so much violence at that time. I couldn't understand why kids was killing kids. It baffled me. When I was free, prior to my incarceration, you might fight. You might even get jumped. But 9 times out of 10, y'all gonna see each other again, get your lick back. Or y'all might be playing basketball or football together down the line. Like, who cares? We got into a fight. Now, if you look at someone the wrong way, they're gonna kill you. I remember I was speaking to a guy on my porch. And him and his homeboys, they stayed across the street. And they came over there, they had big guns. How do these kids get these guns? And so they over there, and they had knew me. I knew some of their relatives. And they was just trying to like catch a vibe, kick it with me a little bit. I was the guy that just got out of prison. They had 1,000 questions about what prison is like. I'm like, bro, you got an assault rifle. Like, you'll be there in a minute. Like, give us some time. I realized everybody that I felt should have been a mentor wasn't. I came back seeing former big-time drug dealers turn into dope fiends. I seen big-time people that was getting money on the streets bummy. Like, I seen people who were ridiculed when they were young become entrepreneurs. Like, so everything that I thought the world should look like didn't look that way. But because of all of the violence that was going on, I said, I want to be a voice for them. Their uncles ain't doing it. Their father might not be around to do it. The big homies lying to them. Somebody got to tell these kids the truth. I do it. So I just started kicking it with the youth, started building reports and building relationships. I started a chess program. The chess program that I started was essential because it taught me discipline. It taught me structure. It taught me impulse control. Like, playing chess really instilled some things in me that I felt like if they had, it will benefit them. Like, so before you go run into your gun, you might actually think before you make that move. You might actually be able to think 2 or 3 steps ahead of time before you commit that crime and say, you know what, I'm gonna just stay home. Because 3 steps later, I'm gonna be locked up because you can see it now. I just wanted to give them a different approach to how you look at life. I mean, a lot of kids feel like they're the black sheep already, irregardless if they use that terminology or not. They already have this notion that they're the black sheep, that they're the outcast, that no one gets them, that no one understands them. I know all about that, right? I've mastered the thought of nobody cares. All I got is me. So I understand when they're coming from, when their posture is based upon that way of thinking. So it's easy for me to relate to them in that sense. I work with DHS here in Muskegon. They have a program, the NYOI program. It's a foster program. And I mentor foster kids through DHS. And one thing that I pointed out to them from the beginning is that the main thing that connects us is the feeling of loss and deprivation. Some of you, have been away from your families. I know all about that. Some of you was betrayed by families members. I know all about that too. All of you have to now engage in the system in a way that you may not want to. That was my life for 21 years. So there may have been some differences between our struggles, like on the surface, but in reality, we all suffering the same sentiments. Deprivation of family, deprivation of freedom, right? You have to be bound to a system that dictates where you go, when you go, and how you go. And so I was able to relate to them in that manner and in those instances. Same as with kids that's coming out of gangs. I was 18 years old when the Michigan Department of Corrections designated me as a gang leader. And from that, they sent me into level 5, maximum security, where I did 16 of my 21 years inside maximum security 23-hour lockdown, mostly because of my gang affiliation. So when I see kids that's involved with gangs, like, I can show you the other side of what that really looked like. I can show you some of the consequences that come behind that, just by sharing a piece of my story, just by you engaging with me and allowing me to mentor you. I can take you to a place and show you a place where a lot of the so-called big homies and OGs won't tell you about. So many kids are insecure, right? My whole life I had insecurities. My whole life I've been trying to figure out how to battle my insecurities. And so when I see kids, there's a scent of insecurity. I can automatically tell what you're going through and some of your fears and insecurities that you possess. I can relate, because I had those. I still got them, right? So I never take myself so far into my adulthood to where I disconnect with young adults and teens, right? A lot of times when we grow up and become older and become adults, we disconnect from the youth because we see the world differently now. We have a different perspective now. We've grew up, right? I think a part of me is still 14 years old when I went to prison.
That's fact.
Yeah, I think a part of me is still 14, and so it's easy for me to see a child and be able to be so vulnerable and transparent with him, because at heart I'm still a kid, so I expose all my vulnerabilities and I'm super transparent on all of my shortcomings. So I think that helps me just connect with them on a different level. So I started mentoring, and I had got connected with our chief prosecutor, DJ Hilson, who's become a great advocate and friend of mine. I like to call myself a school liaison. It's funny because when we started going into the schools, I called DJ. I said, hey, DJ, man, listen, I just need to be your school liaison. We're going into all these schools. I think it'll sound cool if I tell people I'm the school liaison to the chief prosecutor. And he was like, whatever you need, Kitch. So I'm like, all right, cool, I'm gonna run with it. And I ran with it. So what I would call a school, try to set up a meeting and talk to the kids. Yeah, I'm the school liaison to the chief prosecutor, DJ Hilson. Oh, we know DJ, we love DJ. I'm like, yeah, that's my guy. They had me make this call. So I did get into a few schools because of that, but for the most part, he has collaborated with Fresh Coast Alliance, and they have a Power of a Choice program that goes into the schools. And so every time they would go into the schools, they would call me, and I'd come running. Any chance and audience that I can get from the youth, I took. So we probably did about 20 schools in Muskegon County, and it still goes on to this day. And some of those schools have allowed me to come back in with an open door policy to begin mentoring some of the youth that was a little bit more difficult and challenging. So I built pretty good working reports with a few of the schools here in Muskegon County. But it's bigger than that. So I just continue to do the schools. I continue to do the DHS programs. I continue to make myself a household name in my community. Wherever I could lend my story and my voice and my thoughts, I would. I'm spending money on gas to get from point A to point B so I could be a mentor, so I could assist somebody. I'm spending a couple dollars I have because I'm with a kid and he might not have ate and he hungry. The few dollars that I was able to generate was being used towards the mission, and so I found myself just in financial peril. But I was winning awards. Like I had just won 2 awards from the United Way. Everyday Hero Award and the Volunteer of the Year Award. But I'm broke. Yeah, there were people that could have probably helped, but I'm a man, right? So I can't just keep going around asking people for handouts and help. I knew that couldn't just have a regular 9 to 5 and do the work that I did. Working a 9 to 5 takes me away from my mission. My mission is the reason why I wake up every day. Literally. It's what I was put here to do. It's my assignment. And so after about a couple months go by, I'm like, man, I spent all that time in prison and read all them books. I've read a lot of books, and I have a lot of information. And now I got Google at my fingertips. Hey, let's just start me a company. So between April and June, I was just plotting and planning. Do this, I can do that. Let me look this up. Let me call this person. By July, 3 months after the realization that my life is at the lowest it's ever been, I'm broke, I don't know what direction to go in, I started a security company. And that security company literally changed the trajectory of my life financially. I prayed on it. I really prayed on it. And in my prayers, I was asking for enough financial stability that would enable me to continue to do the work that I do. I never wanted to be taken away from service. I believe one of the greatest roles and greatest titles that a person can have in life is that of a servant. I never wanted to get took away from serving. I never wanted prosperity so I can stop being a servant. I wanted to be prosperous and I wanted to succeed in business so that I can be a greater servant and provide greater access to the people in need. And I've held true to that. So I started my security company, and we've had some pretty phenomenal contracts. But again, Google told me what to expect. Google literally told me the requirements and prerequisites, and I know that I didn't meet them. But I have partners that do. So I was able to get out ahead of some of the roadblocks that may have occurred towards me because I partnered and collaborated with people that could meet those prerequisites and those requirements that were set. If you know the roadblocks exist, it's like chess, you have to counter. There will always be a move against you. The objective is not to just sit there and wallow. The objective is to counter, to think, well, if I can't do it this way, what's my alternatives? What's my pathway forward? And for me, because I look at the world through the lens of I would rather collaborate with you than compete with you, it was easy for me to find collaborators. Everything is chess. This is why I teach it. This is why I love it, because it taught me how to think. Man, first let me say this. The world of reentry has changed. Fresh Coast Alliance was founded by Nathan Johnson, Nate. And Nate also had done time. Came home, founded Fresh Coast, turned it into $1 million organization. It has done great work in Muskegon County and pretty much in the west side of Michigan. He deals with reentry and recovery. And that's where I was going when I was initially released. It was my place of refuge. So I would go down there, listen to him, attend groups, and just try to figure this thing in life out. I don't believe there's no real organization here that does the type of work that Fresh Coast does and can have the type of impact that they've had for so long now. So Fresh Coast for me was kind of my breeding grounds. I developed my relationships pretty much with Goodwill by way of Fresh Coast. So then I started volunteering with Goodwill. I've developed relationships with people throughout the Offender Success Program because a lot of my ties and connections to Nate and Fresh Coast. And what's such a blessing for me is I was a client of the Offender Success Program when I got out of prison. And now I'm their peer navigator in Region 4. Like, for me, that's everything. To actually be able to work for an organization to help me and now use it as a platform to help others, to me, that's the full completion. That's a full circle. DHS, of course, Leslie Slater, Andrea, they open their doors, Melissa, they open their doors at DHS and allow me into like confidential spaces to do the mentorship work that I do. So I'm grateful to them. And DHS is a great resource. I mean, people come out of prison, they need food stamps, you know? So developing connections within DHS is very vital in terms of some of the benefits and the supports that you can receive once you come home, and continue to be probably one of the biggest organizations that has impacted me was Pathfinders. They do after-school programming. It's located in Muskegon Heights. Pathfinders was, when I started my nonprofit, Pathfinders was the first organization that partnered with me. Like, you gotta think, I had just did all this time in prison. Who gonna let me around their kids, right? And I felt somewhat at a disadvantage. Like, I just need to get to the youth. But who's gonna open that? Shut down. I'm showing up at school. Nope, no entry, nothing, right? But Pathfinders, they had summer programs. They do it all with a little bit of nothing, man. They make it happen. And they open the doors to me. Hey, come down here. We got you. You know, bring your organization over here. You need venue space to do your programming? Here you go. You need access to the youth to mentor? Here you go. And and the people there are so authentic and so genuine. It's family, you know, so, and they continue to be probably one of the most loyal supporters that I've had in the 3.5 years that I've been out of prison. The things that's happening now in reentry would have never took place 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, right? So, and that's because there's a collaborative effort from like grassroots organizations, state agency like the MDOC. They're collaborating more now with people who you would have never expected. Be mindful. I was paroled on STG2 as a gang leader. Over 300 major misconducts. Having been to the hole over 30 times, I stopped counting at 30. Caught every ticket imaginable. They let me back in when I was on parole. Wasn't even completed on parole. And since then, I've repeatedly gone back into the prison systems, right? They even gave me a plaque. They gave me a plaque. That was the first thing I ever won in my life. It came from the people who I thought was my adversary for 21 years. Make that make sense. For 21 years, me and you been beefing. You've been my adversary and my op for 21 years. And all of a sudden, I get out, and a year later, you give me a plaque. You're awarding me. And I'm just like, what's the trick up their sleeve? You know, like, what's this all about? You let me back into the prisons, you trying to get me. yeah, I see what's going on. You trying to get me. But they wasn't. There were some people within the system I believe, that's genuinely trying to make change. It's going to take a lot, but there has been so much progress made. So I start off with that because, yes, people come home and they are set up to fail. But the blame is not solely based on the system. It's on the mind of the individual. Like, when you want to be free just as much as you want to live, there is nothing anyone can say or do that'll get you to go back to prison. I ain't going back. So it ain't about what resources are available, who's going to, facilitate them. It's about your desire for freedom and how deep that runs. If I had no resources made available to me, I was going to figure it out, because I'm not going back to prison. Could the state do more? Absolutely. This is a big industry, and we generate a lot of finances and funds. So yes, they've made tremendous progress, but that's not where it should stop. That's not where it should end. We've kicked down doors. Great. We need to kick down some more. And even the politicians are funding some of these reentry activities, right? Like I said, I'm a peer navigator for Offender Success. Offender Success is the reentry arm of the MDOC. So my contract is with them. That would have never happened a couple decades ago, right? I'm on your payroll. So just from a personal position, I can say that one of my greatest resources was the Michigan Department of Corrections. I needed to get back in there and speak to those men that I left behind and let them know that it was hope out here. They facilitated that. I needed to get on that TV screen, just in case y'all didn't get a chance to come to the events and hear me speak. I need to get on that TV screen. They facilitated and made that happen, right? I need to do work, because I still have to have an income and sustain my life. I can't be a volunteer all my life. Here's an income for you to do the work that you do. That's a valuable resource there. They've done more for me in terms of resources just as much as anybody, I always felt like I could say whatever because no one paid my bills, right? I wasn't beholden to anyone, right? I don't pick sides and cliquisms and politics. My objectives and my assignments are clear. And so I've always been able to be brutally honest with my perceptions, my perspectives, and my outlooks on life. So if I come off a little harsh, forgive me. But the main thing that I want to tell the people is this. My motto for years has always been to make the impossible possible. It was impossible for a 14-year-old to come home at 35 and do the stuff that he has done. I made the impossible possible. It was impossible for someone to come home and 36 years old, apply and get admitted into Grand Valley State University. It was impossible that after I did my fall semester, I became a co-teacher in my winter semester of the same class I took in the fall. After just being there for 2 semesters, I was a co-teacher and launched a project that expanded from Grand Valley State to Muskegon County. That was impossible. All my life they told me that I wouldn't amount to anything because I was going to be stuck in prison. And then I came home. My point is this. I've only been home for 3.5 years. Plaques, awards, college, great job. All of that happened because I believed in myself. I only was able to make the impossible possible because I was so rebellious and I was so mad at the system that this was the best revenge that I can give them. This was literally the best revenge that I can inflict upon a system that had me incarcerated for 21 years. My success is the greatest that I can ever give them. If I went back to prison, they win. If I stayed out, I won. Any gain, any success that I had, that was my saying, the system is broken. But the reality is, when I realized I was putting too much energy in trying to say to the system that it was distracting me for what my true calling and my assignment was, and that was to serve. I keep saying it, I'm a servant, right? The system provided me a platform to serve. So I can no longer say, because the platform that you're providing me is helping other people that I wanted to serve. So now I do this and say I'm grateful and I appreciate you, right? If I didn't do that, I wouldn't be able to do what I do. I wouldn't be able to serve. I wouldn't be able to contribute. I wouldn't be able to help the people that I help, right? A lot of people believe that because I collaborate and I work within the system now, that I'm just pro-system. No, I'm pro-good people and anti-bad people, no matter what system that it's in. Every system has some good and it has some bad. And even to this day, I always said the MDLC didn't rehabilitate me. I was in my cell 23 hours a day for 16 years. But what it did do for me is show me the most ugly side of humanity that I never want to go back to. It punished me for the crime, and it deterred me from wanting to commit future crime. I can throw rocks at it all day long, but it worked for me. It took me 21 years, but look at the benefit now.